Welcome to Cast of Wonders, the fiction podcast for young adults featuring stories of the fantastic. Today we present Barsoom in June by Brian L. Hurrell. Brian is an American who narrowly missed being born in Glasgow. A lifelong science fiction fan, he is especially fond of Golden Age stories from the 40s and 50s. His fiction has appeared in the science journal Nature and magazines such as Daily Science Fiction and Bête Noire. His many previous occupations include high school English teacher, carpet installer, cab driver, and US Marine. He now develops software for the financial industry and lives in New Jersey with his wife and son. Your narrators today are myself and my good friend Dave Thompson. By day, Dave battles through reams of red tape writing corporate documentation, but his real job is co-editing and hosting the fantasy podcast Podcastle, where you'll find fantasy stories of all stripes. Highly recommended. He is a published author and also a respected and frequent narrator for many venues. You can find 2 of his audiobook narrations on Amazon, Norse Code by Greg Van Eekhout and Briarpatch by Tim Pratt. And now, we've a tale to tell.
Barsoom in June by Brian L. Hurrell. Come in, Mr. Unger. Now what's all this fuss about? You've created quite a stir within the astronomy department.
I'm sorry, sir. It was unintentional. I was setting up a spectroscopy demonstration for my Astronomy 101 class. I used the Talbot ECR 394 with...
Long story short, Mr. Unger.
Well, sir, I did a test analysis of Mars and, well, it showed oxygen. Lots of oxygen.
Obviously, there was something wrong with the machine, or its calibration.
That's what I thought too, so I tried a second spectroscope. The Marchand 227...
Marchand always was a little quirky.
Yes, sir, so I ran the same tests on the Dorishuk equipment and...
And?
The results were the same.
Then it was a calibration problem. You were picking up data from Earth's own atmosphere.
I thought of that, sir, so I requested some imaging time on the ESA's orbiting IR spectrometer.
Which is how this was brought to my attention.
Yes, sir. In the meantime, just for the hell of it, I did the same analysis on Venus.
Did you now? I trust you found plenty of CO2?
Yes, but also oxygen in almost the same amounts. But what was really crazy was the data I received from a thermal imaging scan. The temperatures were nowhere near what they should have been. In fact, they were practically...
Hold it right there, Mr. Unger. And I do mean, hold it right there.
Is that a hairdryer?
This? Well, I suppose it would dry hair, for about a nanosecond, before disintegrating it and the head it is attached to into their component atoms.
I don't like practical jokes, sir, and this particular joke is in pretty poor taste.
On the contrary, Mr. Unger, were this a practical joke, it would be a most excellent one indeed. Unfortunately, this is no joke. Do stand still, please.
Or you'll disintegrate me.
Depending on the setting, this device can indeed disintegrate you, but it can also stun you, shrink you, or selectively erase memories.
Right.
What if I told you that I was not actually from Hoboken, New Jersey, but instead from a small town at the foot of Olympus Malls?
Okay.
I can see that you need further convincing. You are familiar with Miss Kellerman, from the biology department?
Of course, who isn't?
Of course. Well, what if I told you that Miss Kellerman was actually a native of the planet Venus?
Beautiful woman from Venus. Makes perfect sense.
Miss Kellerman, would you come in here for a moment, please?
Sure. Men are from Mars, women are from... Yeah! What's with the Sleestack costume?
Actually, Miss Kellerman is out of costume. And I assure you, any resemblance to the denizens of the Lost Land...
Land of the Lost?
Yes. Any resemblance to those creatures is purely superficial. Zaki, or Miss Kellerman, is far more quick and agile. Were she to face one of your storied velociraptors unarmed, it would be a toss-up as to the winner. Suzaki, you are acquainted with Mr. Unger in astronomy?
Hello, Janice. Saki. That's a lovely neck frill. Is that a friendly hiss or an I'm going to eat you hiss?
Miss Kellerman needs her vocoder to mimic human speech. The simplest literal translation would be, you smell like swamp lurkers' leavings. High praise in her culture, I might add.
Well, she certainly looks the part, but you look human as far as I can tell.
Ah, yes. 1 minute while I... Damn. Zaki, would you be a dear and help me with this zipper? Thank you. Ah, much better.
You got to be kidding me.
Beg pardon?
Green. Martians are green.
More of an olive, actually.
An extra pair of arms, of course. Why not?
They do make multitasking a breeze. Now, what we need to decide now is what to do with you, Mr. Unger. But first, I want you to listen carefully. Everything you know about Mars and Venus, their compositions and atmospheres, their surface temperatures, their geography, all of it is a carefully constructed fiction.
That's impossible. How can you hide something like that?
Venus is a young world, very much like Earth millions of years ago during the age of the dinosaurs. And, in fact, they do have dinosaurs, or creatures so near to those who roamed Earth as to make any differences academic. Mars, in contrast, is an old world, and possessed of an old culture. We have canals, towering spires, and great sailing ships which crisscross not blue oceans of water, but red seas of sand.
We've been studying Mars and Venus for centuries, and in the last few decades have sent probes to their surfaces. Not one found any trace of life, much less civilization. How do you explain away 100 years of solid scientific data?
Explain it? It's simple, Mr. Unger. I and my colleagues, along with trusted friends of your own race, are responsible for almost all of that data. We lived in perfect isolation until one of your astronomers, Percival Lowell, discerned the Martian canal system at the turn of the last century. He even mapped them fairly accurately.
But it was determined that they were optical illusions.
And who do you think made that determination? Who do you think put the kibosh on man's space exploration? Who do you think are the most vocal opponents of NASA and SETI? We had a near disaster when photos of some of our monuments, notably the Pyramid of Deja, and the visage of Tarkus got past us and into circulation. But we managed to cover that up, eventually.
But I just don't see how you could create a deception on that scale. Anyone could get a spectrometer.
But how many people could use it properly or interpret the data? You took it on faith that Venus is a boiling, lifeless greenhouse, and that Mars was a long-dead world. Did you come to this determination on your own, recent events notwithstanding? Of course not. Did you travel to these worlds just to see for yourself? Obviously not. How many average people would even question this information? They can't actually verify it themselves, and even you took the word of others and information from books to be irrefutable truth.
Surely you can't control every single astronomer on the planet.
The skills to actually study a planet in detail are rare. Access to the necessary equipment, even rarer. And we control most of that. As for the occasional individual like yourself who stumbles upon an inconvenient fact here or there, well, they are quickly silenced.
Silenced, I'll bet.
Oh, don't be so dramatic. They have a few selective memories erased, which is probably doing them a professional favor and prevents them from becoming laughing stocks.
And if somehow I did tell the world?
That will not happen, I assure you. No one would believe you for one thing. However, we certainly can't have someone who knows about us running around.
So you're going to erase my memories?
Perhaps. Or we may.
Disintegrate me?
Probably not. I would only do so in self-defense, though I doubt Zaki would give you more than a quarter second to make a move.
Are you afraid I'll interfere with your plans to take over the Earth? Because you'd be right. How many of you are there? How long's this been going on? What was that?
That was the sound of a Venusian laughing.
You won't be laughing when we rise up and send you packing back to your own planet with your tails between your legs.
Relax, Mr. Unger. We have no intention of invading Earth or taking over or forcing you to work in the mines of Titan.
Then what do you want?
Merely to be left alone, Mr. Unger. Many of us, myself included, like Earthlings, especially your sitcoms. But we like Earthlings right where they are here on Earth. If Earth knew there were 2 more habitable planets in this system, how long do you think it would be before the explorers landed? Then the colonists, then the businessmen, the miners and industrialists, and worse still, tourists. How long before Mars and Venus are merely occupied territory? Third world, well, worlds, destined to be mere client states and watch their own culture disappear.
You don't know that.
We'd rather not take chances. Venus is young and vigorous, and certainly needs no interference in its growth. Mars, on the other hand, is in its twilight, our golden age having passed about the same time you were inventing the wheel. You might even say we're a fading race, but we'd like to live out our old age in quiet dignity. Thank you very much.
Martian canals, sand ships, swamps, dinosaurs, Venusian lizard men, and women, of course. It's a lot to take in.
You probably won't have to worry about it much longer.
Hell, you might as well zap me with your memory eraser then.
Of course. There is an alternative.
Besides disintegration?
Besides disintegration. I find the fact that you haven't passed out or run off screaming and flapping your arms promising. Perhaps a change of scenery would do you some good.
You want to transfer me? Great. Shuffle me off to an adjunct position at Podunk U where I'll be all but out of the academic community, I bet.
I was thinking more along the lines of Cydonia Technical Institute.
Oh yes, where's that? In West Virginia? Wait a second. Cydonia? On Mars? There's
also a substantial number of expatriates, so you'd hardly be the only Earthling.
Well, that would be incredible. But what about Venus?
Being that you are not a trained Navy SEAL, your life expectancy on Venus would be, about 5 minutes.
And if I was a Navy SEAL? Meaning?
7 minutes. I'm afraid Venus is out of the question. Far too humid there anyway. As it is, you're in luck. There's a transport leaving in 3 days. You can be on Mars in 7. I actually envy you, Mr. Unger. I haven't been home in years.
And if I don't want a transfer?
You go back to class with a slight headache, and no memory of this meeting or your spectroscope readings. And you will have a sudden interest in studying distant stars, rather than the boring and lifeless worlds in our own solar system. Your next class is in, a little under 5 minutes. I'll give you 4 to make your decision.
And so ends Barsoom in June. We asked Brian if he'd like to share anything about this story in particular. He says, by the time I got around to reading Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter books, along with Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles and his wonderful short story The Long Rain, our knowledge of the solar system had long ago made it clear that Martian canals and Venusian jungles were completely out of the realm of possibility. This did not in any way reduce my enjoyment of these stories, of course. And there was always a small corner of my mind that wondered, perhaps even hoped, whether such places did indeed exist. After all, I only know that Mars and Venus are uninhabited because I take the word of scientists who seem to know what they're talking about. But what if those early writers had hit a little too close to home? Now, of the story, what do you think happens to our hero? Does he choose to go or stay? Come let us know your answer in the forums at castofwonders.org/forums. The forums are open to everyone. You do have to register, but registration is quick and free. Join us, maybe meet the authors and take part in story discussions or chat about anything you like. Cast of Wonders is a production of Wolfsbane Publishing. The editor is Marguerite Kenner. The audio producer and host is Graham Dunlop. It's released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivative license. Share it but don't change or sell it. Theme is Appeal to Heavens by Alexei Nov from musicalley.com.